your loved ones, and we're excited to learn more about you throughout the week. Now we are going to have our keynote address. And so they briefly introduced themselves earlier, but Cara and Claire DeCamp have been coming to conferences since like forever, I think. So we're going to turn the time over to them to share their story.
Oh, no.
My name is Claire DeCamp. This is my daughter Cara, and we live in Denver, Colorado, and we've got our aunt with us that I introduced earlier. I just want to say how touched I was to be asked to give the keynote speech by Lindsay, and this is our 4th conference. And she asked me, I really dug deep into my soul to try to find the right words of encouragement and wisdom through our journey, because I know all of you have been through what we've been through. Our journey is very different, though, from most of everybody in the room. And I came to the conclusion, from my perspective, that our life's journey so far has been defined in 3 different segments. And it was defined, number 1, by the diagnosis, which was paralyzing at no matter what time you get it and who gives it to you. It is paralyzing. The loss of your dreams and your imagined future for your child and the life of your child. I also needed to grieve for the loss of my dreams, which I think everybody can relate to here. So you do feel ambushed, you feel bombarded, you have to go through your own grief period. The second transition that I saw in our life was navigating the school system, which is a full-time job in itself. And when your child has special needs, you're going to have to rely on your teachers, your support group, your family, and the skills that your teacher has and the parents that you have, and it's a full-time job. I will share Cara's story in a little bit and try to put a common thread to our 3 transitions into where you're at and how your transitions may or may not go, because our stories are very different. My main advice throughout our school journey is to focus on all the achievements that your child can do and all the things that they like to do, rather than the tasks that they cannot do compared to other children their age. This is extremely difficult to do on a daily basis, and without a good support system and a good school district, the teachers and the other parents. Expose your children to as many activities and experiences as possible, and they will guide you to where their interests lie. Be respectful to your school system throughout the years, but also always know what your rights are. Very important. The third transition is preparing your child for life after school. Entering into the workforce, if possible, trying day programs for adults with disabilities, if you can find one that you feel is a good fit for your child, and keeping up with friendships, with old friendships and making new ones. Some friends during the school years will peel off and fade away early. Other ones will be lifelong friends. This is our journey. This is our story. Cara's birth in itself was a miracle. I was told at the age of 30 that I would not be able to bear any children due to a very serious and complicated uterine surgery. 10 years later, I had a surprise pregnancy. The same 4 doctors that had performed my performed my surgery all said I had a 0 chance of being able to carry a child. Cara was born on my 40th birthday. Healthy, happy, calm, no problems. She was so calm and beautiful that the nurses in the nursery nicknamed her the baby Buddha because she gave a calmness to the nursery. Back in 1995, I did have an amniocentesis because of my age, but it came back bad. At that time, they only tested for Down syndrome and 2 other fatal genetic abnormalities. After a healthy first 2 years with 0 illnesses, not 1 cold, Cara has never had 1 cold or earache or any type of illness. Actually, she got COVID a couple of times, but that was pretty mild. But after the first 2.5 years, I became aware that her speech process was slow compared to other children. The diagnosis at 3, at the suggestion of a daycare provider, I got her into an early childhood learning system throughout the school district. It was then that they suggested that I have her genetically tested, which I did at Children's Mercy Hospital in Kansas City, where we lived at the time. When the results came back, I was told by the geneticist that she had a deletion of the 11th Q chromosome that was named Jacobson syndrome, and he knew nothing about it. Just as all of you in this audience, I was in absolute shock. He strongly urged me, this was back in 1998, not to Google JS. He quickly ordered tests on her heart and kidneys associated with any type of complications or abnormalities, which all came back normal. And then he ran a genetic test on myself and her father. I then sat down with him and asked, what do I do next? He was kind and empathetic when he said, your job now is to go into the school system and try to find the best teachers and the best support group and the best paras that you can. He then encouraged me not to tell them that she had had a diagnosis of JS. And his feeling back then was they will just Google it and then she will be denied some resources. This was a long time ago, but they'll the microphone. Did it come back on? Okay. They'll focus on all the things she can't do rather than all the things she can do. So that's what we did. But we did get ambushed a few days before she started kindergarten by the school district. Apparently, the preschool early childhood teacher had told the school district Cara would never be able to read or write. And the principal of the grade school in our neighborhood made a decision that he didn't have the resources. So I went into a meeting 3 days before she started kindergarten. And I was told that they did not have the resources. And I very calmly said, well, that's not acceptable. There were probably 10 people in the room. They tried to tell me again, we need to send her to a school clear across town in another school district that can meet our needs. I said, that's not acceptable. I bought my home just right down the street from this grade school so my child could go to grade school. And she went on to grade school. She learned to read and write. She was in her she was in the resource room. And I did not become aware of Dr. Grosfeld until 13 years later. So she went on as any other child into grade school who's social and adventurous. She was a human GPS. She could tell directions from first grade, and when she would be in another parent's car and they were going the wrong way, she would say, excuse me, but you're going the wrong way, and tell them exactly where to go. Started in first, second grade. She played all sports, particularly loved basketball, and later joined a competitive league in middle school. She collected hundreds of baseball cards, knew every player, in all the teams. She loved art and computer skills and games such as solitaire. She loved movies and was an avid TV NCIS fan. She was in the resource room for reading and writing, which were slow, but she attended the regular classroom most of the day and through middle school, and had just begun high school when she was 15. This brings me to our next chapter. I've been reluctant to share this part of the story with this group on our journey for fear by sharing it, it'll alarm you. If I were to write a book, I would title it The Winter Solstice, the longest night of the year, the longest night of my life. On December 21st, 2010, just a few days before Christmas, Cara went out shopping with my best friend Karen to get my Christmas gift. I was hoping I would not be opening an NCIS t-shirt for me on Christmas. Karen assured me I would not. They returned around 4 o'clock and Cara bounded up the stairs to watch TV. She was happy and looking forward to Christmas. Little did I know that our lives would change forever. I started dinner and was expecting a neighbor to drop by. When she came to the door, I called upstairs for Cara to come down. When she didn't come down, I went upstairs and found her barely breathing on my bathroom floor. I immediately assumed she had slipped and hit her head. It never crossed my mind that this had anything to do with Jacobson's. She had never been sick, had not had one problem, no heart issues, no kidney issues, nothing. My friend came over and I told her to call 911. She had no idea what had happened, and she was very calm in her response, or in her call to the paramedics. When the paramedics arrived, there was a little urgency. The head paramedic, a tough gal named Tanya, slowly walked into the bathroom where I was holding Cara on the floor and asked if she did drugs. Although I said no immediately, she asked, how did I know that my child did not do drugs? I quickly answered, she's in special education in school. There was time being wasted, and I did not argue with her. I stayed as calm as I could in order not to waste more time. She then asked if Cara had been sick during the day. I answered no. She had been out Christmas shopping. Tanya then looked directly straight into my eyes and asked, had anything else happened today? That was code for, was there any abuse? Obviously, I said no. After the other paramedics came in and put her on a stretcher to take her to the ambulance, they took her blood pressure, and I would find out much later it was 220/160. I still believed she had just hit her head. They rushed her to the first hospital. It was a level 2 trauma hospital. I knew that there would most likely not be a neurosurgeon there, and we would have to wait on one. When it was determined by a CAT scan that she had a massive brain bleed, they called the Flight for Life team in, and she was transported to Swedish Hospital, which is a trauma one. She went into the PICU ICU and it just opened. The chaplain was waiting for me. As I was leaving hospital number 1, a young doctor in the ER came over to me and put his hand on my shoulder with a tear in his eye. He said, there's not one person in that ER room that won't go home tonight and tell their child how much they love them. We see drug overdoses, we see car wrecks, but we've never seen anything like this. As for the paramedic Tanya, she would come often to the hospital to visit us with her children, and she repeatedly asked me for my forgiveness as she was crying. Over the years, she would bring the fire truck over to our house. She'd bring her children, all the rest of the firefighters, and we became good friends and stayed in touch for a long time. She said she thought she was a good paramedic, but she had learned more than ever on that one day with Cara. Over at Swedish, every attempt to save Cara's life went on for many, many weeks as she was in a coma. Upon arriving at the hospital, the attending doctor asked if there was ever any medical issues I was aware of. That was when I told him she had an 11th Q deletion. He had never heard about it. How could this be? She had never been sick, and then a massive stroke. After about a week, a friend of mine Googled JS, saw Dr. Grossfeld's papers, and contacted him. I did not know about this initially. I then went to her doctor and repeatedly asked him to contact Paul. After much reluctance, he did so, and that is when I came to know Paul, although we wouldn't actually talk or meet for a couple of years. Cara was in the hospital for 3 months, where she slowly awakened and had to learn to talk, walk, eat, drink, and function enough to come home. She would be in OT, PT, and speech for the next 2 years. A year later, we went back unannounced to the ICU at Swedish, where her life was saved. I had her put on some dark sunglasses, and as we walked through the door unannounced, she took them off and said with a smile, "I'm back." They had never seen her awake. They had obviously never seen her stand or walk. The doctors and the ICU nurses were in total shock. Some were crying. They said, "We need to see miracles. This is important. We need to see miracles." For the next several years, we would stop by during the holiday season, and everybody who knew Cara would marvel at her steady progress and wonderful and positive outlook of life. Dr. Grossfeld contacted me a few years later and asked me for her medical records as he was researching and writing a paper on hemorrhagic strokes with JS kids and adults. His paper was published, and Cara's information is included as a patient survivor. You can find his paper on our JS website. It is thought by the majority of doctors that cared for Cara that the cause of her stroke was due to undetected hypertension, high blood pressure, which is actually never checked when you go into just regular, if your child doesn't have any problems, they don't start checking it. I don't think it was ever checked during junior high or high school when she went in for physicals. So this has never been confirmed that that's what the cause was, chicken or the egg. Did she have hypertension and that caused the brain bleed, or vice versa? Cara went back to high school the next year and remembered everything from before. She joined Unified Basketball and played in 2 championship games in the Pepsi Center before the Denver Nuggets played. Who knows what Unified Sports are? Does anybody? Good. It's where it was the biggest sensation in our Cherry Creek High School, where able-bodied kids play with the disabled kids or handicapped kids, and it got more people coming to those games than any other game during that season. It's wonderful, and it's in all sports. It's not just basketball. There are many kiddos in our JS community that have found hobbies and activities they enjoy. We have Sydney with cheerleading. Emmett runs marathons. Elliot plays the drums in a band. Petey does so many things. I can't keep up with them, but they're always on Facebook, and there are many, many more wonders. Cara looks back on those days and always says, "Good times, good times." Life after high school. A parent asked me, "How did you get Cara a job?" She believed that the school system should be out looking for jobs for your child. I said, "That's our job. School gets them ready and equipped with skills and things that they like to do. I went out into our community, and Cara now has, and she's had 3 jobs, she now has 2. And I'll just quickly tell you real quick, and then we'll wrap up. The story of our thrift stores in Denver was started by a gentleman, Lloyd Lewis, whose son is Down syndrome, has Down syndrome. He realized years ago there was few working alternatives or anything to do after high school. And he started this wonderful, wonderful group of chain stores called our thrift stores. And think of them as a step up from Goodwill and kind of a little step down from Ross. But anyway, they hire disabled people, and they have a fundraiser every year, which is not televised, but it's emceed by the local TV station. And they have a fashion show. Cara was chosen to be in the fashion show one year, and one of the pictures is on there with hair and makeup done. It was fabulous. And just real quickly, she goes to a day program. It's called Wellspring Community. It was started exactly the same way, where a mother realized that there was nothing for her daughter to do after high school, and they started baking cookies in their kitchen and went out to the community and sold the cookies. That's now turned into, there's way over 100 people, adults, because we don't call them kids anymore, with 100 more waiting on the list. They go out into the community. There's probably 100 classes to choose from: gardening, photography, music, library. It's just a wonderful, wonderful experience and program. And I know a lot of states and cities do not even have anything close to this. If you'd ever like them to come and speak here and how they got it started and funded, they'd be lovely to do that. And then just a few years ago, I took Cara down to Tijuana, Mexico, with a Habitat for Humanity house build, where you go in and you build a house in the middle of nowhere in 1.5 days. And everybody there marveled that she had had a stroke, and she can do anything. And we gave her a job. Oh, she also works at Coffee Collective as a barista that Wellspring sponsors. So in closing, I would say my sweet Cara is the purest of souls. She finds joy in the simplest of things in life. She has never said an unkind word to anyone, has no hatred in her heart, and does not understand the concept of war, and has no regrets of past or future actions. Wouldn't we all like to live our lives like that? The card that was dealt to all of us here in this room with Jacobson's will not define our child's future or the happiness that they can experience. When I see somebody come up to me with that sad look in their face, and I know immediately what it is, it's one of pity or feeling sorry for us or feeling sorry for our burden, I quickly say, no, no, no. Don't feel sorry for me. I got the prize in the Lucky Charm box. Thank you.